It's Presley at ActOutGames.com here, and today is the 6th day of Bookmas. So, Cooper, would you like to go first?
What's the name first thing? I'm gonna whip the name. I'm gonna whip the name. I'm going to whip you. I'm going to not take off the reins. Very carefully take this thing off. Take this. Okay, you can take you. Ow.
It's the other side, Cooper. The other side has the title on it. The Boy Who Loved Math. This is The Improbable Life of Paul Erdős, I think. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do mine.
Seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
This was from Holly Black. It is Valiant, a modern fairy tale by Holly Black. I'm really excited to read another one of Holly Black's books because Doll Bones was really, really great. So I'm excited to see what else she writes. She has a lot of talent. So and she seems like she'd do really well with like a fairy tale kind of thing, because she did really well with kind of the paranormal stuff with Doll Bones. So this seems like it would be really good. Cooper, do you want me to go read your book? Mm-hmm. All right, let's go. We're going to see the first one. The Boy Who Loved Math. There once was a boy who loved math. He grew up to be one of the greatest mathematicians who ever lived, and it all started with a big problem. Paul Erdős lived in Budapest, Hungary, with his mama. Mama loved Paul to infinity. Paul loved Mama to infinity too. When he was 3, Mama had to go back to work as a math teacher. She didn't want anything bad to happen to Paul, so she left him with the one person she knew would take very good care of him. She left him with Fraulein. Fraulein had too many rules. That was the problem. Paul hated rules. He hated to be told when to sit still, when to eat, when to go to sleep. What could Paul do? Sounds like someone I know. You. He couldn't exactly solve the problem, but Paul knew when summer came, Mama would be home with him all day, 100% of the time. So he taught himself how to count really high. Then he figured out how many days it would be until summer vacation. It made him feel much better to know the number. He's like, oh no, don't touch that! Oh no! No! Don't touch that! So Paul kept counting and thinking about numbers. One day when he was 4, Paul asked a visitor when her birthday was. She told him. What year were you born? He asked. She told him. What time? She told him. Paul thought for a moment. Then he told her how many seconds she'd been alive. Paul liked that trick. He did it often. Paul played with numbers. He added them together and subtracted them. One day he subtracted a bigger number from a smaller number. The answer was less than 0. How could an answer be less than 0? Mama told him numbers below 0 are called negative numbers. Paul thought that was so cool. Now he knew for sure he wanted to grow up to be a mathematician. What?
0.
1, 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, or like -1. Now he knew for sure he wanted to be a mathematician when he grew up. But first he had to tackle another big problem. Are you touching your belly? School! Mama sent him to school, of course, when it was time. But Paul and school were not a good match. Paul could not sit still for long, so he got up and ran around the classroom. But that was against the rules. Oh, how Paul hated rules. How could he solve this problem? Don't do that, Paul! Paul told Mama he didn't want to go to school anymore. Not for one more day, for 0 days. He wished he could take days away, negative school days. He pleaded with Mama to stay home. Luckily, Mama was a worrier. She worried about germs a lot. She worried Paul could catch dangerous germs from the children at school, so she helped him solve his problem. She told him he could stay home with Fraulein. But even Fraulein was better than school, maybe 500 times better. Fraulein and Mama did everything for Paul. They cut his meat and buttered his bread and got him dressed and tied his shoes. That was great. It meant Paul could think about numbers all day. Numbers were his best friends. He could always depend on numbers to be there and behave in the same way. Numbers followed rules. He didn't like rules in life, but he liked rules in numbers. And so Paul turned 7, then 8, then 9, and when Paul was 10, that's how old I am, he fell in love. He fell in love with prime numbers. Prime numbers are special. They can't be divided evenly. A prime number can only be divided by itself and 1. The first prime number is 2. But that isn't the only even prime number. That is the only even prime number. Sorry, I read it wrong. I'm like, what? That's wrong. But that is the only even prime number. All the other prime numbers are odd. The numbers 3, 5, and 7 are prime. But not all numbers are prime. 9 isn't prime because you can multiply 3 and 3 and get 9. Paul had a lot of questions about prime numbers. Do they go on forever? Is there a pattern to them? Why is it that the higher up you go, the farther apart the prime numbers are? Paul loved to think about prime numbers. When he got older, Paul wanted to go to high school. He likes school a million times better now. He made many friends and people his age who loved math and were really good at it too. Paul and his friends did math together all over Budapest, but Paul was the best. He loved being at the top. He loved being at the top in math and at the top of towers and mountains and buildings.
Shut up!
Shh. Paul and his friends did math together all over Budapest. But Paul was the best. He loved being at the top in math and at the top of towers and mountains and buildings too. He thought about math whatever he was doing, wherever he was. By the time Paul was 20, he was already famous around the world for his math. People called him the magician from Budapest, but he still did not know how to do his laundry or cook his food or butter his bread. That was not a problem. He still lived at home and Mama did everything for him. But then one day, when Paul was 21, some mathematicians invited him to go to England to work on his math. Could he survive out in the world on his own? He rode the train by himself. He met the mathematicians. They all went to dinner. Everyone else talked and ate, but Paul stared at his bread. He stared at his butter. He didn't know how to butter his bread. Finally, he took his knife, put some butter on it, and spread his bread. He did it. It wasn't so hard, he said. Even though he could now butter the bread, Paul soon realized that he didn't fit into the world in a regular way. He wasn't the kind of person to cook or clean or drive a car or have a wife and children. He wasn't the kind of person to live in one place and have one job. He was the kind of person to do math all the time. And he still didn't like to follow rules, so he invented his own way to live. Here's what he did. Paul would get on an airplane with 2 small suitcases filled with everything he owned, a few clothes, and some math notebooks. He might have $20 in his pocket or less. He might have $20 in his pocket or less. He flew from New York to Indiana and into Los Angeles. He flew across the world, from Toronto to Australia. I have no home, he declared. The world is my home. And wherever he went, when he got there, the same thing would happen. A mathematician would meet him and take him home. The mathematician and Paul worked on math. Paul played with the mathematician's epsilons. That's what Paul called children, because an epsilon is a very small amount in math. And just as Mama has done, friends all over the world took care of Paul. They did his laundry and cooked his food and cut open his grapefruit and paid his bills. Now, Paul wasn't the easiest house guest. He made messes, big messes, like the time he got impatient and opened a tomato juice carton by stabbing it with a knife. And he often woke up his host at 4 a.m. and said, "My brain is open." That meant he was ready to do math. He wanted to do math about 19 hours a day. Every single day. 19 hours times 7 days a week is 133 hours a week. That's a long time. New York Post. FBI defeats prosecutor. 3 aliens, just students. One time when he was a young man, he broke in a rule that got him into big trouble. He climbed over a fence to look at a radio tower. He got arrested. The police thought he was a spy. The FBI thought he was a spy, so they spied on him for years after that. Why did friends all over the world put up with him and take care of him, call him Uncle Paul and love him? Because Paul Erdos was a genius, and he shared his brain. He helped people with their math problems and gave them more problems to do. Plus, he was a math matchmaker. He introduced mathematicians all over the world to one another so that they could work together. Paul knew that mathematician plus mathematician plus mathematician equaled more and better math. Paul and his friends did so much great math. They worked in math called number theory, I can't pronounce that, combinatorics, probabilistic method, and set theory. Look. Paul showed his friends how to do math in new and better ways. He even started some new kinds of math. Some of the math Paul and his friends worked on gave us better computers and better search engines on the computer. Also better codes for spies to use. Uncle Paul was generous with his brain and his money too. Whatever money he had, he gave away. He gave money to poor people, and he offered prize money for unsolved math problems. Even when Paul got very old, he did math. He did math while he played chess. He did math while he drank coffee. Lots and lots of coffee. He thought about math while he played ping pong with his best friends. Paul said he never wanted to stop doing math, and he didn't. To stop doing math, Paul said, was to die. So Paul left this world while he was in a math meeting. All over the world, mathematicians still talk about and love Uncle Paul. Even people who never met him, they talk about the Erdos number. If you did math with Paul, you'd get an Erdos number of 1. If you worked with someone who worked with Paul, your Erdos number was 2. People were so proud of their Erdos numbers. And these are lots of people with high Erdos numbers. There's lots of people with 2 Erdos numbers. There's some people with 1 Erdos number. There's 1 Erdos number, 2. There's lots of people with Erdos numbers all over here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Good job. A long time ago, there was a boy who loved math. Numbers were his best friends. He grew up to be a man who loved math. Numbers and people were his best friends. Paul Erdos had no problem with that. The end. Was that a good book? Do you want to do math now? Well, you gotta learn your numbers first. Alright, so if you want to keep up on Bookmas, then please subscribe. It really helps us out. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye! Bye!
It's time to press the subscribe button. Subscribe button. Subscribe button. Subscribe. Bye, 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 bye.